Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book which has come to us from the Legal Action Group. That's the Access to Justice charity. It's the 5th edition of a book on housing associations. It's a legal handbook, being written by Christopher Handy and John Alder. Delighted to be able to review this work. It's an important contribution to housing law generally, and of course it's very much part and parcel of the main thrust of the publications from LAG. I've given it a title for our review, an increasingly important and developing area, no longer a marginal topic for housing practitioners, and that's because of some of the major problems we've had with the lack of house building, the rise of the number of housing associations as compared with council housing generally, and the way in which things have gone with a very big increase in the number of the population and the requirements for housing in the United Kingdom. Let's look at the book first of all, because it's an important area of law. There's the book. It's a paperback. There's the spine, and then on the back, at least it's reasonably okay to read because it's on a white background and you can see the basic information, and I have included some of what's on there in the review. The back of the book has a very short index. There we go, you can see it there. The index is by paragraph numbering. If you go to the front of the book, there is the front page, and that's the information about the two authors, Christopher Handy OBE and John Alder, Professor Alder. Now this is actually dated 2019. I'm reviewing this on the right at the end of 2018. It's just come in. There's the blurb, and then there is the preface, which is well worth reading because he's explaining. The preface is dated October 2018, and he's taking into account a lot of things that are probably going to start changing again next year. Then there's the content section. This is very much the house style of Legal Action Group. You can see the content section there running all the way through. You should be able to find what you're looking for quite quickly. Then there's the case law, not too much case law, but then there's statutes, and then after that you've got statutory instruments, of course, there, and then after that some European and international legislation, and then we get what we have got is a very useful abbreviations. I do like the use of abbreviations because it does help you find things. I only review books that I think are worth reviewing, and they get a high star rating from me because they are. I will not review books that I don't consider very highly because it's not fair on the author, pardon me, and all the people involved. Now, for each of the chapters, you've got a little mini index, which is quite helpful. Again, you should be able to find things. Then you can see what we've got, paragraph numbering, and then at the bottom you've got the a little bit of footnoting, and that runs all the way through. There's the middle of the book, and then the end. So it runs to about 350 pages, something like that. Now, what do we say about it? Well, it's not a long review, this one, but I do feel these books are very important, and they must get as much coverage as possible, because there are so many people today who cannot afford legal advice and have to deal with these matters themselves. I know, because I've done a few pro bono cases, but like everybody else, we can only do a certain number because there are just so many people who need assistance. But what I say here is that Christopher Handy and John Alder have produced an excellent new 5th edition of this definitive guide to the law affecting housing associations and social landlords. It's the only legal guide that I know of on housing associations, and it manages to be both comprehensive and highly accessible and practical. So those who live in housing association property, their advisors, and those who manage social housing will understand the rules that cross many different areas of law. And it's a different area of law from some aspects of local authority housing, which obviously is looked at in a slightly different way, although the general principles are there, because the book aims to provide a framework for the housing practitioner and the lawyer working in or with the sector. And for those already acquainted with social housing law, it provides perspectives and insights demonstrating how the law has evolved and developed. And it identifies the principles and rules unique to housing associations. And of course, what the two authors have done is they've highlighted other areas of law which have a distinctive application. A lot of this is mentioned on the back, and it will be in some of the blurb as well, but I'm repeating it because that is the basic mission statement that we have. And of course, remember that LAG, the Legal Action Group, as an access to justice charity, and there are a number of charities, they're linked with a number of other organisations, of course, as well, like CPAG, Child Poverty Action Group. They're, in my view, to be commended for continuing to tackle what is an important area of housing law at a difficult time for housing policy. James Brokenshire is the Housing Minister, Secretary of State for Communities, but Secretary of State for Housing. He's made some statements, but clearly in 2019, this matter post-Brexit will certainly become, I think, a very important area because there is a really serious problem developing with the lack of housing. So all the titles which Legal Action Group provide for us, and they actually publish them as advisors, are, I believe, first-class statements on the law in the areas they cover, most of which is social law. And we cannot be without them. They really are a great boon to us. The titles are particularly useful for those new to the legal profession and for unrepresented parties because the books are tried and tested in their format, and the books work, whether you're a junior advocate or a judge. And I have to say that LAG appeared in the publishing world about the time that I began practicing at the bar full-time, and having finished my studies, and I found them very helpful in the early years of practice, not after pupillage. I mean, they weren't really available when I did pupillage, but certainly in the early years at the bar I found it very helpful because I did find it very difficult to get around the complexities of some of the, actually what now today for me looks relatively simple by way of applications in, say, the county court. But this information is very helpful and also very useful for the client. Now the topics that are included, and they're listed here, but I'm going to mention them because I think that this will be of help to you. Most practitioners seeking current information may be interested in one of these areas. They include general principles of housing association law, the regulation and regulatory powers of the organisations, housing allocation and management, again a very important area, tenants' rights and types of tenancies, supported housing problems, governance, accountability, investment grants and income, and mergers, amalgamations and group structures, because obviously this is a different area from the local authority housing structure. And what the authors, Dr. Handy and Professor Alder, aim to offer their expertise in is to a range of users, including those practitioners specialising in this area of housing law, housing associations, local government departments, of course directly involved, voluntary housing bodies and the voluntary side, and housing association tenants. I think will also find this book indispensable, and I have been advising a group recently on this locally, and I've advised them that this is the sort of book that it's very cheap, they can get hold of it, read it, and they will understand what the rights are they have and what the obligations are from the on the other side. We therefore consider that the book will also be useful for students, as I've indicated, pupillage, post-pupillage, studying housing law, and those with an interest in urban studies, possibly social studies and so forth, sociologists. And I think this book should be available in every local authority housing office, plus of course your local reference libraries and citizens' advice. And the law is based on materials available at the end of September 2018, and the book was published on the 13th of December 2018. Now I'm recording this actually on the 30th of 2018, right at the end of the year. Let's just have one last look at the book. There we go. And there's the spine, and then there's the back. And if I open it in the middle, you can see this is particular regulatory powers, transfer of land and amalgamation. There we go. You can see a lot of detail. As is the case with anything today, there's a huge amount of detail. Paragraph numbering, you can see a lot of footnoting going on there. This is, I think, a very important statement on the law, and I'm quite clear in my mind that this is a book which will be extremely helpful for the judiciary when they're making some of their decisions, because this is not an easy area, or never has been. We have a very large homelessness problem as I speak. It's at one of the highest levels for years, and that's down partly, and I make no bones about this, to the number of orders for repossession, and that's down mainly to councils and the behaviour of quite a few private sector people. The thing is that we've got to start looking in the future at what we do with our housing stock, and of course the one thing which the current government says they're doing, I'm not going to suggest they're wrong, but they claim they've been building more houses after years of no building. Well, we need it. If we're going to have many people coming in as migrants, we've got to have the infrastructure. That is what's going to happen. London, where I practice, is one of the biggest areas with problems, and the Mayor of London recognises that, Mr. Khan, and we know that this area of law in particular will be very important in the future. So a very big thank you to LAG for producing this work, and I'd like to thank all the people involved in it very much indeed. Do have a look at our review in the journals as well. Thank you. Bye bye.